Welcome to DevTech Finance. In today's video, we will be learning about hire purchase. We will basically try to cover the meaning, process, agreement, and all the parties involved in a hire purchase system. This video is a part of Financial Services module, so I recommend you to watch all other related videos in the playlist to get a better understanding on this topic. Now let's start with the introduction. Hire purchase is a system through which a person hires the asset from seller for a time period by paying installments and can own the asset once last installment is paid at the end of contract. So hire purchase, whenever you are going to purchase an asset, which may be any electrical item, any vehicle, any consumer durable good, so you want to make the purchase but you cannot afford to pay the full amount at one go. So you will better like to go for installment purchase. Now hire purchase provides you one such system in which you can acquire the asset, use the asset and keep paying through installments. But this is different from another options like where you make payment through installments in consumer finance, for example. There you get the ownership, but here in hire purchase system you are not provided with the ownership. You are having the possession of the asset or the good, but the ownership will be transferred to you only after you make the last installment payment. So meanwhile, we will be discussing about the hire purchase. We will try to understand the difference as well between the consumer finance as well as the hire purchase system. So let's see that till now we understand that it is a credit purchase system. When you cannot afford to pay, you can buy through installments, and hire purchase provides you such an option. Now there are generally three parties involved in the whole hire purchase transaction. So first one is hire vendor or seller. So you have visited the shop and you want to make a purchase over there. So there is a seller, one who sells the asset to the hirer. Hirer is no one but the purchaser or the buyer, which we say is referred as hire vendor or the seller. Second party involved is the financing company. So financing company act as the link of payment between the seller and the purchaser. We will further study the process of hire purchase, so we will understand how the finance company acts as a link between the seller and the purchaser. So whatever amount you pay through installments go to the finance company and finance company pays to the seller. Then the hire purchaser or the hire. So one who purchases the asset from the vendor, which we also refer as buyer. So buyer of the asset will be called as hire purchaser or hirer in terms of hire purchase system. Now these are the three major parties involved in any hire purchase transaction. Ownership and possession, you need to know about it. See, we are trying to make it convenient by noting down the points, because if you will remember all the things in points, it will be more easier for you to memorize things and understand things. So next point we are discussing is ownership and possession. Hirer will immediately get possession of the asset after making down payment, but ownership will remain with the seller till the last installment is paid. So we discussed about other installment systems like consumer finance, where ownership is transferred immediately after the first installment. But when we talk about hire purchase system, here things are little different. You make the down payment and after that your installment starts, but till then you have paid the last installment and the agreement or the contract form is over. Then only you are provided with the ownership of that particular good or asset. Till then, the ownership lies with the seller. However, you are provided the possession. So, possession means you can use that particular asset, you can use that particular good, but you are not the owner of that good. Now, let's talk about installment. Through hire purchase system, hirer can make payment of purchased assets price in installment over an agreed period. So you know that it is another installment payment system which make it more convenient for the buyers to make payment of any particular good which you can't afford. So hire purchase system also provides you with such an option where you can make installment payments over an agreed period of time. So generally this period ranges between 2 to 6 years, and in this between you will be able to make the payment. So mostly you will find the hire purchase agreements are of 3 years on an average. Return of asset. The hirer has the right to return the asset before end of agreement and stop making future payment. So this is another difference which make hire purchase system different from other consumer finance option or other installment basis. So here what happens that hirer is having the right to return the asset, because what you are making as payment in form of installment is taken by the seller as a payment for using that particular asset. So you can return the asset before the end of agreement and stop making future payments. So there will be no legal proceedings on you. Whenever you feel like you can't afford to pay anymore and you have used that particular asset, you are having the option to return back the asset. But you need to discuss all this before in the agreement with the seller. Transfer of asset. Hirer cannot transfer or sell the asset to another party until the last installment is made. So since you are not having ownership on the good or the asset, you cannot transfer or sell that asset. Only after you have made the last installment payment and now the agreement is over, that means you have got the ownership. Then you can make transfer or sell of the asset. But before that, you are only having possession, that is the right to use. You are not having ownership. So you can't sell or transfer that particular asset because the ownership lies with the seller. Default in payment. In case the hirer defaults on any installment payment, the seller is entitled to take away the asset with him. So this is another thing which makes hire purchase system a little different from other installment and consumer finance option. So here if the hirer defaults, the seller is entitled to take away the asset with him. So if you are defaulting on any installment payment or if you are paying late, you may be fined charges. And if you are defaulting on payments which is more than 1/3 of the payment, then the seller is entitled to take away the asset, to take away the good, because he's till now having the ownership of that particular asset without any legal proceedings. Whereas this is not in case of other options, other installment and consumer finance option. So hire purchase is a bit different. So and I'm trying to make it understand to you because it will be clear and you do not get confused with other installment systems to the hire purchase system. Asset involved. So again, for hire purchase system, generally people used to buy assets like car, bikes, computer, electrical goods, furniture, machinery, equipments, refrigerator, etc. So these are some of the major assets which is provided on hire purchase system by the seller, and generally buyers will prefer buying on installment basis these items. Down payment. Generally down payment ranges between 15 to 20% of the purchase price. So this is the margin which any finance company or banks like to keep with them. So if you are a buyer and you are going to purchase any asset, you can't make the full amount payment, but you need to make the down payment, which will be a part of that purchase price that ranges between 15 to 20% generally. So down payment is at the moment you make the payment to the seller in cash basis or maybe in his account. Now let's understand the hire purchase process, how it goes on. So you as a buyer, you visit the store and you ask the seller for hire purchase system to make purchase of an asset which you cannot afford to pay at once. Now the dealer or the seller will contact the finance company or the bank. As I said, there are three parties involved. So there is a finance company or bank which will provide finance to you. So the dealer or the seller of that particular asset or good which you want to purchase as a buyer will contact the finance company and will ask to finance the hire purchase deal between you as well as the seller, you being the buyer. The buyer or the hirer selects good and expresses desire to purchase on HP basis. HP here is hire purchase basis. So you as a buyer, you select the good and you want to go through HP agreement, that is hire purchase agreement. Now the customer then makes the down payment. So you being buyer or customer, you will be making now the down payment. Everything is defined. So now you are ready to make the down payment. You have selected the good And we already discussed that the down payment ranges between 15 to 20% of the purchase price of that particular asset. Now next, the seller sends the document to finance company or bank. So whatever documents you will be submitting, which will be your identity as well as other proofs, so those documents will be submitted or sent by the seller to the finance company or the bank. The finance company have a risk, so they will try to verify your document. They will accept the offer, but they will verify the documents, they will sign the documents and then send back to the seller. After this, the seller then delivers the goods to the buyer. So once the deal with the finance company is okay, it is done, then the seller will deliver the goods to the hirer or you as a buyer. After that, as a hirer or buyer, you can start making payment of installment to finance company. So here finance company acts as a link of payment, as I already mentioned. So you would be making installment payments to the finance company through your account, and the finance company will make one go payment to the seller. So this is the whole hire purchase process, how it takes place. Now let's see hire purchase agreement. So some terms and conditions which are involved, which are generally there in hire purchase agreement. First is the asset involved in hire purchase agreement. So what good you are purchasing, which asset you are purchasing, that will be mentioned. The retail price, so the retail price is what we say as MRP will be mentioned, and the hire purchase price. Now hire purchase price will be different from retail price because some additional amount will be added to it. Since you are making payment on installment, it will be a little extra, which we call interest charges will be involved. So the retail price and the hire purchase price of the asset will be mentioned there in the agreement. Number of installments and date of each installment. So how many installments you require to make the payment as a buyer, and when will be the installment due date. So you need to consider the installment due date to make the payment, so that you don't default on making late payments, because on late payments there may be some kind of charges involved by the seller or the finance company's side. So you need to consider the date on which your installment is due and number of installments that you are required to pay. Name and address of all parties involved in agreement. So there will be name mentioned of yours as a buyer, your seller, the company, the finance company or the bank involved. So all the parties' details will be mentioned there in the agreement. Cost involved. So there are costs like documentation fee, some interest which will be charged because of the hire purchase system. Then there could be penalty fees if you are making default on payment or you are making lately payment. So these all are some costs involved in hire purchase agreement. Thank you for watching. Do like and share my video. Subscribe to my channel, DevTech Finance. Thank you all.